Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Mayday Morning Show. I'm Julie Roginski. I am here by myself today because Michelle Kinney is a little under the weather. So we wish her well. We hope she feels better. So we're going to make this a little bit more of a Q&A because I don't really want to talk to everybody by myself all hour and just talk to you at you all. But I do want to raise something that I think has not really been covered by media much in the context of this Ukrainian peace deal that Marco Rubio spent the weekend trying to hammer out in Geneva with the Ukrainians. I don't know if people noticed, late on Friday night, I actually stayed up till like 2 a.m. writing a Substack about this because it's just insane. But late on Friday night, a bunch of senators who were in Halifax, Nova Scotia for a conference got a phone call from Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State / our National Security Advisor. He's got about 17 titles now, as he was flying to Geneva to meet with the Ukrainians. Because earlier, if you remember, the Trump administration, or Axios, I should say, Axios, the media company, released a leaked 28-point plan about the Ukraine peace deal. And it was a very strange plan insofar as that it gave Russia literally everything it wanted and more. And just among some of the things it gave them all of the Donbass. It gave them Crimea, which they've effectively occupied since 2014. It gave them half of Ukrainian cities that they didn't even occupy fully yet, and effectively rewarded Vladimir Putin and Russia for everything that they absolutely wanted but couldn't get on the battlefield, which is insane when you think about where we are here in 2025. Well, what was interesting about that is that I read that 28-point plan, and something about it really didn't ring true to my ear, because you guys know I'm a native Russian speaker. And the way it was framed was very much like something that somebody who speaks very fluent English but is Russian would write. The verbiage was a little off. It was a little, unless you actually speak the language, and unless you've grown up, as I did, and have spent your entire life around Russian speakers who speak English, you would not necessarily pick up on it. But I thought to myself, I was like, holy shit, did they actually just hand Steve Witkoff, who is Trump's special envoy for peace? I'm not kidding, that's his title. Did they just hand him a document? And is this the document that Donald Trump now said Ukraine has to accept, and that they had until Thanksgiving, until Thursday, to accept it? Basically, they had a week to accept it. And I was like, something here is not right. This does not sound like a document that American English speakers would write. This sounds like a document that somebody who speaks fluent English but is a Russian speaker would write. And sure enough, and I cannot believe the press hasn't gone crazy on this, but sure enough, they basically, Marco Rubio admitted to these senators that the Russians this was a Russian document, and that this was the document that Donald Trump was trying to shove down Ukraine's throat. And this is like the biggest this is like the biggest scandal in our foreign policy history, that we have a president of the United States who is effectively the bagman for Vladimir Putin. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And for those of you who are asking what the connection is between Steve Witkoff and the Russians, I'll tell you, which is, I've been banging the drum on this for 100 years. Steve Witkoff does not work for our government, first of all. He is a real estate developer and a friend of Trump, who Trump just said, you are now going to be the special envoy for peace, whether it's in Gaza or in Ukraine / Russia, which is crazy. They have General Keith Kellogg, who's dealing with the Ukrainians, who's set to leave in January, I think, because he's so frustrated. But the guy meeting in the Kremlin with Vladimir Putin at all hours of the night with a Russian interpreter and nobody else is Steve Witkoff. Now, the funny thing about Steve Witkoff, and it's not so funny, is that Steve Witkoff has a son named Zach. And Zach Witkoff runs World Liberty Financial, which is Trump's crypto fund, the crypto fund that the Trump family owns a majority stake in. We don't know who's putting money into that crypto fund. But whoever it is making both the Trump family and Zach Witkoff incredibly wealthy. Now, do you think there's a possibility that the Russians might be putting, or people close to Russia or close to the Kremlin are putting money into Zach Witkoff's fund in crypto because we don't know who's buying these tokens? And it may be the Russians, while his father is negotiating this quote unquote peace deal with the Russians that gives them everything they want. It's a massive scandal because ultimately Trump then went out and went crazy again. He's got this up and down relationship with Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. This time again, he decided to go crazy on him. Again, reminded him that he's got no hand, he's got no cards to play. He better accept this peace deal or else. And this peace deal, by the way, violates the Ukrainian constitution. Zelensky couldn't accept it even if he wanted, because the Ukrainian constitution says that you are not allowed to give up any part of Ukrainian sovereign land without an all-Ukraine referendum. So the president and the parliament can't do it themselves. And the reason they put that in the constitution is because they were worried that their politicians were going to sell them out. So even if Zelensky said tomorrow, yes, I want to give the Russians everything they want, which is an insane amount of Ukrainian territory, it's against the Ukrainian constitution. But Trump doesn't care about that because he doesn't care about our constitution. He certainly doesn't care about Ukraine's constitution. I go back to what was discussed during that 10-minute ride in the Beast, the presidential limousine back in August. If you remember, the Marines were on their hands and knees rolling out the red carpet for Vladimir Putin, who is wanted for a whole host of atrocities by international authorities. And yet he's arriving in Alaska. Trump rolls out the red carpet for him. And then they get into the presidential limousine. And they have a 10-minute conversation by themselves just with their body people. Now, the reason they were in the Beast, which no other foreign dignitary, I believe, has ever ridden in, is because it is one of the most secure places on earth, and anything that is discussed there could not be picked up by anybody else. 10 minutes alone, what was discussed? And now you see 2 months later, 3 months later, however many months it's been since August, I guess almost 3 months later, that Trump is literally taking a 28-piece plan that I am convinced, and I'm telling you this, sometimes it helps to have spoken the language. I am convinced, and Marco Rubio kind of conceded, he said it was a Russian wish list. Well, it's a Russian wish list that was literally, I believe, handed to Steve Witkoff by an emissary from the Kremlin, who then leaked it to Axios to force Trump's hand. And rather than understanding that this was being leaked to Axios to force Trump's hand, Trump decided to double down and say, yes, if the Ukrainians don't accept this, it's all over. Then Rubio has to fly to Geneva and effectively try to clean all of this up. Still with the deadline of this November hanging over Ukraine's head. Could you imagine if Barack Obama had ever done something like this? They would have impeached him. They would have, this is beyond impeachment. They would have removed him. This would have been an international crisis. This would have been the biggest scandal in American history. That the President of the United States is the bagman for one of our adversaries, if not our biggest geopolitical adversary. And yet the media here is like, I don't know. Let's not focus on that. That's just Trump being Trump. There's a very easy way for this war to end, my friends. Russia's just got to get the hell out of Ukraine. It's not hard, because I will go a step further. If this succeeds, and the United States is giving part of this 20-point plan, the United States is giving security guarantees to Ukraine. The security guarantees are very interesting. Effectively, if Russia invades Ukraine again, whole deal is off. But if Kiev fires a missile at St. Petersburg and Moscow, this peace deal is off also. Now, think about that. Ukraine can't fire missiles at Russian cities. But Russia can't invade. But Russia can fire missiles at Kiev and Lviv and every other Ukrainian city and drones and whatever else they want to send over there in perpetuity. They just can't invade. Well, how have they been killing people all over Ukraine? It's been through missiles for the most part. I mean, there's battlefront deaths, but civilians are being killed because they're being literally blown up to bits, including kindergartens and senior centers and other places, through missiles. And this 28-point plan allows Russia to keep doing that. But I guess Wickoff never bothered to read it because, or maybe he's just fine with that, and maybe Trump is fine with that too. If this happens, every other country on Earth that can have a nuclear weapon will suddenly get a nuclear weapon. And the reason for that is because Ukraine gave up its nukes back in the 90s under Bill Clinton, because the British and the United States and the Russians and the Ukrainians had a deal. If Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons to Russia at the collapse of the Soviet Union, then Russia would promise never to invade or annex any part of Ukraine, because Ukraine was worried about that. They know how the Russians operate, even back then. And the United States and Great Britain would guarantee their security. Well, that was all out the window. We're certainly not guaranteeing their security with this plan. Russia certainly broke its commitment not to invade. And yet, Ukraine gave up its nukes. Had it had its nukes, I think Russia would have thought twice about invading, because again, it's like India and Pakistan. They're just, staring at each other through these nukes, and it's a deterrent. So what's the lesson to Saudi Arabia? What's the lesson to Egypt? What's the lesson to Taiwan? What's the lesson to every country that is worried about somebody grabbing any part of their territory? You got to nuclearize. You got to get nukes. You don't want to go the way of Ukraine. Think about how dangerous our world will be if we all are sitting here having nuclear weapons pointed at each other, including some of these incredibly unstable regimes. This is a disaster of incredible proportions. And this is what people voted for when they thought they were voting to lower the price of eggs last November. It's just insane. It is just insane. I really have been just completely just blown away by the insanity of what has been happening. It is a major, major foreign policy scandal. And I just want to be clear, right? Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota, Republican, an ally of Trump, said, and I quote, "Rubio made it very clear to us that we are the recipients of a proposal that was delivered to one of our representatives by the Russians. It is not our recommendation. It is not our peace plan. It is a proposal that was received as an intermediary. We have made arrangements to share it, and we did not release it. It was leaked." And Senator Angus King, independent of Vermont, who also spoke to Rubio and was part of that conversation when he called into their conference in Halifax, Nova Scotia, added the leaked 28-point plan, which according to Secretary Rubio is not the administration's position. It is essentially the wish list of the Russians. Now, Rubio, of course, starts backpedaling, walking that back because he realized he screwed up, and wrote on Twitter, the peace proposal was authored by the U.S. It is offered as a strong framework for ongoing negotiations. It is based on input from the Russian side, but it is also based on previous and ongoing input from Ukraine. Bullshit. Bullshit. Because on Friday, Trump made it quite clear that the Ukrainians had no choice but to accept it, whether they liked it or not. And the leak was set up by the Kremlin to force Trump's hand, and the plan seemed to have worked, since the president of the United States, my friends, immediately doubled down on the Russian position and tried to shove it down Ukraine's throat. The Kremlin literally handed a document to Wickoff, and the Trump administration passed it off as ours. And then Trump on Friday doubles down and says about Zelensky that he has until this coming Thursday, Thanksgiving. I guess Trump just wants to go eat turkey in peace and not worry about, world peace. This is what he said about Zelensky. He'll have to like it. And if he doesn't like it, then they should just keep fighting, I guess. At some point, he's going to have to accept something he hasn't accepted. And then he added, you remember right in the Oval Office not so long ago, I said to him, you don't have the cards. That's where we are. That is where we are right now. And again, I just want to quote from this document because it's so outrageous. And I quote, this is what the 28-point plan says. If Russia invades Ukraine, in addition to a robust, coordinated military response, all global sanctions will be restored and recognition for the new territory and all other benefits from this agreement will be withdrawn. Okay, by the way, that is, if I were thinking about how to translate something from Russian as a Russian speaker into English in my head, that's how I would translate it. That's not how we speak as Americans, but that's exactly how Russian verbiage would go. But if Ukraine fires a missile at Moscow or St. Petersburg, then the security guarantee will be considered null and void. Okay, so again, they can go ahead and fire missiles at Kyiv all they want. Ukraine can't do the same. I think we can debate what it is that Vladimir Putin has on Trump, because I think we all suspect he's got something. But it's actually secondary to what we already know. And that is that the White House is a handmaiden of the Kremlin, nothing more than an errand boy passing along Russian orders to the world. And a plan drafted in the Kremlin has been presented falsely as an American document to make it more threatening to Ukraine and more palatable to our Western allies and to the American public. That part is not up for debate, no matter how much Rubio is trying to walk it back. And I'm sorry, because I know this is very heavy for a Monday morning, especially on Thanksgiving week, but this is the darkest stain on our nation. And whatever we might have suspected before, we know it now. Our government has betrayed us to the Kremlin. And if you want to know why, you can hop on over to Substack and read today's I believe, 18th chapter of my series with Olga Lautman about how Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help Trump win. And here comes the reward. Here comes the reward. And you're absolutely right, everything rosy. It is a Russian coup by proxy. I want to just say that Donald Trump has not been in office even a year yet. And look at everything that's happened. And by the way, the price of apples, bacon, eggs, everything, how's it going for people? Because your Thanksgiving meal is costing a lot more this year than last year. And it is just heartbreaking to me that the American people voted for this. We are not a country that Democrats with a small d around the world can trust anymore. To our friends who are watching from Australia and from Canada and from Great Britain, and I know we have people from all over the world here. As an American, I am so deeply sorry that so many of the people who live in this country, my fellow citizens, felt the need to vote this man into office. I've said this before and I'll say it again. If I had a wish list and I were sitting in the Kremlin and I wanted to design the perfect person to be the president of the United States, it would be Trump, because he's destabilizing us here at home. We are not on the cusp of a civil war, but we're effectively staring at each other and staring each other down, not as Americans anymore, but as Democrats and Republicans. He has created massive problems among our strongest allies. He's threatening our friends in Canada, who are basically like our siblings. He has completely destroyed the Pax Americana. I believe we will be out of NATO soon. He's trying to annex, or he's talked about annexing parts of our NATO allies' territory, whether Canada or Greenland. And he's betraying a country that is fighting our war, because let's not forget that if Ukraine loses and there's no more Ukraine, there will be no more Taiwan, and it'll be might makes right all over the world. Every single country that is stronger than its neighbor will just say, what the hell, I'm going to go grab it. The reason we've had war after war after war throughout human history is because of that mentality. The only reason we have had relative peace, at least in the Western Hemisphere, for the last 80 years, is because after World War II, the horror of that war was so awful that we put parameters in place to prevent something like that from happening again. That's all over now if this peace plan goes through and Ukraine is forced to accept this ridiculous plan because one day a stronger country that neighbored it woke up and said, I'm going to grab a piece of that territory. I'm going to grab a piece of that territory, which, by the way, it's never going to stop. Putin made very clear that the greatest, and I quote, geopolitical tragedy of the 20th century was the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Well, in addition to Ukraine and Russia, there were 13 other republics in the Soviet Union who are now 13 other independent nations. But not for long. Not for long. It's just, it is so dangerous that I don't understand. I understand that I blew out everything else that we've talked about all these weeks about Epstein and all the other stuff that we discussed. And I know that for those of you who joined us on Coffee and Conversation on Saturday, we were a little bit lighthearted. I'm sorry I lost my connection. I was doing it from the car on Saturday when I was at a squash tournament with my son, but I know that we were a little lighthearted on Saturday. And I look, we could talk about the Epstein list some more if people want, but I just, I have no idea what's going on at CNN and MSNBC right now, but I'm sure if I turn them on, they would not be ringing the alarm about what's happening. But I want you all to really understand what is happening here. Lost in translation, would Putin go against NATO members? Yeah, if the United States doesn't give him a security guarantee, sure. You don't think Putin, look, let's look at this logically. Let's say Putin wakes up tomorrow and he says, I want to take Estonia. Do you think Donald Trump is going to go and put American troops on the ground or otherwise deploy American blood and treasure on behalf of Estonia? He should. They're a member of NATO. But Trump is going to say, where the hell is Estonia? And why should I be doing this? I'm the peace president. Now, the Estonians and the Latvians, the Lithuanians, and every other NATO member defended us when we got attacked on 9/11 and sent troops to Afghanistan, even though it wasn't their fight, but they understood it was their fight because they understood about collective defense. They understood about Article 5. Trump doesn't understand about that. And I believe that Ukraine is Putin probing a little bit, probing. But I don't even know if people realize this, they are sabotaging infrastructure every day that belongs to NATO members in international waters and in waters off, like they have subs off the coast of Great Britain right now. That's a NATO member. Finland, Sweden, I mean, they're screwing around, especially in the eastern part of NATO with those countries all the time. They're doing that right now. They're sending drones over Poland, over Germany, NATO members all. And people are sitting there and they're just watching to see what they're doing. Russia's not watching, they're acting. They're acting. So, it's I think Putin is trying to Heidi, I think he's trying to reconstruct more in the former Soviet Union. I think he's trying to reconstruct the um Russian Empire, which included parts of, well, it's at one point it included all of Poland and Finland and parts of Sweden. I mean, when you think about the Russian Empire, it was bigger than the Soviet Union at times. So it's just amazing to me that we have been the indispensable nation for so long, the United States. And no more, no more. We are now, it's like we just switched sides. We just, and I know this word is not used much anymore. And I know it's kind of an old fashioned word, but I think it still matters. And that is dishonor. We have acted with such dishonor. We have just betrayed. If this goes through, we have just betrayed everybody. And for those of us who remember, I don't think any of us were alive back then, but for those of us who remember Neville Chamberlain going to meet with Adolf Hitler in Munich and carving up Czechoslovakia, and then coming back to England and waving this, I just met with Herr Hitler and we have peace in our time. And the next year, the following year, on September 3rd, 1939, Germany invaded Poland and World War II began. And that's what would happen here. And this is the man who ran, and I quote, as the peace president, who, by the way, is amassing so much hardware, military, and other intelligence off the coast of Venezuela, preparing potentially for an invasion of Venezuela without even telling the American people why. Like, why are we invading Venezuela? Because we're about to. And Venezuela has been a strong, very, very close to Putin. Is this part of the deal? That Putin's like, okay, I'm not going to do anything to help the Venezuelans. We're not going to arm them. We're not going to defend them. You guys give us Ukraine. Are we trading away Ukraine, which has fought so valiantly for so long, for Russia to turn a blind eye to its ally, Maduro, being overthrown in Venezuela? Maduro is a bad guy. He's not there legitimately. He's got an illegitimate government. But if we're going to start invading every bad guy's country, we're going to be at war for the rest of our lives. I mean, a lot of people were here illegitimately. Vladimir Putin was elected illegitimately the last several times he ran for office. I mean, is that what we're going to start doing now? We're going to start invading countries because their leaders are there illegitimately? And this is the man that promised to end wars, right? He talks about it now. I ended 8 wars. Now I'm going to, 7, now I'm going to end my 9th war. We don't know what he's talking about. If you go over to the Middle East and see what's happening in Israel and Gaza and the West Bank right now, you'd see that nothing's really been ended. But I mean, it's not even like he's got any sense of history or any sense of what a world map looks like or any sense of anything other than he wakes up in the morning and is like, oh, I want to do, I'm in the mood to do this. Everything is governing by gut. Completely incurious. I bet you, if somebody put a map in front of this president and said, point out Ukraine on this map, he would not be able to do that. I bet you if somebody put a map in front of him and said, point out Venezuela on this map, he wouldn't. It's just amazing. I mean, it's just amazing. So I've been at this for 35 minutes. I don't want to I don't want to spend all morning bitching and complaining about him. So let's do a little Q&A. I don't know if anybody has any questions for us. Oh, that's my Alexa who said they're not sure how to help me with that. So look, I'm trying to think. Oh, I have a question for everybody. Michelle and I had a question for everybody. Thursday morning is Thanksgiving, obviously, here in the United States, for those of you who are American watching us. Do you guys want us to do a show on Thursday morning? We're up for it if you want to get up this morning at 8 a.m. Or do you want to just watch the parade or sleep in? If you want us to do a show, let us know. If you have other plans and we'd be talking into a void, then we'll take the day off. We are going to do a show again. We're going to start a series now for those of you who joined us on Friday with Jeff Jarvis, who's been so amazing and incredible. We're going to do a show with him every Friday to talk about the media and other things that's on our mind. John Donnie, who had my son do this weekend. My son did really, really well. There's this one kid who shows up to these tournaments who's like shouldn't really be playing in these tournaments because he's so good. He's so much better than everybody else. He should be playing at a higher bracket tournament, but he shows up to win the trophies. So my son lost to him, but then he beat everybody else. So that was very nice to see. He's becoming a pretty good squash player, which makes me happy. Thank you for that question. And let's see what else. So let me know about Thanksgiving. We want to know about that. We want to know if we do a show on Thursday, can you make it a little later? A little hard because I think both of us have to do Thanksgiving stuff a little later, so we can't do that. But we'd also take a day off. It's fine. I mean, we just listen. If folks here don't have something to do for Thanksgiving, and you think of us as a community, and you need your friends around you on Thanksgiving because the holidays are tough for you for whatever reason, we will do a show because we're here for you and we're here for this community. So for those of you who are thinking, well, it's going to be a tough day for me because I've got nothing going on, or even for people who have plans and just want to hang out with this community on Thursday, then we are here for you. Absolutely. For those of you who want to watch it a little later, you could always go to YouTube and watch it a little later on Thursday if you want, or just skip it if you've got stuff going on. But I think we feel very, very strongly that we are building this wonderful community of folks, all of you here who show up every Saturday, every morning during the weekdays, and that we just want to be here for you on a day that we know is sometimes not great. I know the holidays are a little tough sometimes for people, and we are all friends here, and we are not going to make the holidays tough for anybody. So if you are in the mood, we will do it. Question, can we collectively sue the government for not allowing us to pursue happiness? Because I've only ever been able to pursue healthcare insurance. That's a great question. I think it would be hard to define happiness, right? Your idea of happiness may not be my idea of happiness. Speaking of healthcare, Obamacare subsidies expire in just a few days. Apparently, Trump is rolling out as early as today a new healthcare plan. I believe it might include a temporary extension of the subsidies. And then I think what he's trying to do is just give somebody a pot of money and tell them to go buy insurance themselves. Complete and utter catastrophe. It is going to make healthcare completely unaffordable for reasons that are technical and we don't want to do. So I don't know. Heidi, what do you think world leaders should do, Julie, about this global crisis? It's tough because we have so much power in the United States. I ultimately think that, the rest of our NATO allies need to just step up their own defense spending and help arm Ukraine. And if the United States pulls out and the United States stops sharing intelligence with the Ukrainians and the United States stops sharing financial aid with the Ukrainians, if it stops sharing certainly military aid with the Ukrainians, that would be a humongous blow to Ukraine. But it's not an indispensable blow because Europe would still be with it, provided that Europe wants to step up. Now, the problem for Europe, of course, is that they've got their own financial problems, each of these countries, and they've got a population in each of these countries that also wants them to spend money on domestic priorities and not on military priorities for another country. So I understand why that's difficult for them to do. Having said that, at least I would hope that whether it's Merz in Germany or Macron in France or Starmer in Great Britain, in the UK, and all of these countries in NATO understand that this is as much about their domestic politics as it is about foreign policy, because Europe is not want to go to war. Unlike the United States, Europe has seen war on its territory much more recently. I mean, the last time the United States really saw troops on our foreign troops here was 200 years ago, more. Europe saw it. There are still people alive who remember World War II in Europe, and how that affected the civilian population there in ways that it never affected the civilian population in the United States and Canada. And so I would hope that because of that memory, Europe would take this a lot more seriously. And again, what can I say? It is horrifying to me as an American that this is happening. It is just embarrassing. If you remember a few weeks ago, my little cousin from France was here staying with us. He's back. He came back to celebrate Thanksgiving with us. He's French. And he just got off the plane yesterday. And of course, the first question is like, what's going on here? What's going on? I mean, like, they're just completely confused, the Europeans. And for those of you who are Europeans, you understand. Kevin Cox, can I just take a moment to say how devastated I am to watch another loss for the Giants yesterday in OT this time too? Kevin, you're in England and you're watching the Giants? If you think you were devastated, my husband and my son were like punching the wall. They were so upset. I couldn't care less, to be honest, but the men in my family were like devastated. Actually, I'm not even sure they were devastated. I think they've just given up on the Giants altogether. But if you're a long-suffering New York sports fan, you are very upset, because it was not so long ago that New York City dominated in baseball with the Yankees and with the Giants and football, and now we are dominating nothing, and it's very, very sad. Yay, French cousin. I am so happy he's back. I know, it's wonderful to have him back. He found a cheap flight from Paris and hopped a plane and to spend Thanksgiving with us, and love him. Makes me so happy, because I haven't been able to get over to Paris for a couple of years now to see my family there. So it's nice that at least some of them trickle in here. Your disappointment, Jane, your disappointment of the Steelers is much more meh. Is that because you've just given up on the Steelers? Again, like, the Steelers used to be, when I was growing up, the Steelers were dominant, and now not so much. You were at the Giants Super Bowl in 1986 in Pasadena, Eileen. Is that where they played it? I think they played it in Pasadena in 1986. I cannot believe I remember this. Like, I'm Rain Man, because I don't care about football, but I remember that was in Pasadena, I think. Yes, cheap flights, because no one is going to the US. Exactly. And if you do come here, make sure you wipe off any political content on your phone, because God knows they can stop you at the border and just take your phone and send you back if they don't like something you've said about Trump. It's crazy. Happy Thanksgiving to Yaka Music Video 4369. And Heidi, Canada is also making moves to protect our Arctic region. You should. We love the Canadians. You guys are the best. Canada is like the United States, but just like the better version, without all the craziness. We love the Canadians so much. Michelle pretty much feels like she is Canadian because she grew up so close to the Canadian border. I did not. I grew up in New York and New Jersey, so that's nowhere near Canada. I grew up in Central Jersey, which of course we know is the best part of Jersey. What else? Do you watch the Sunday morning news shows? What do you think of them? I do sometimes. I used to watch them religiously. I mean, back in the day. I don't think they are what they used to be. I think they've now kind of become an opportunity for elite Washington to talk to elite Washington to some extent. They make news sometimes, but I don't think they answer the questions that some of us want answered. I don't think the moderators press the people on those shows the way they used to and the way they should. And so I watch them sometimes, but to be honest, not as much as I used to. I did NBC on election night, this past election night. And so I was hanging out with Kristen Welker in the green room because she came up from Washington to do it. And they did it actually out of the Today studios, which I'd never been in before. It is a tiny little studio and a tiny little green room, the Today Show. I never realized how much that Today Show studio looks big on TV. And usually when you do NBC, you do it across the street at 30 Rock. But this time it was at the Today Studios, which again, super tiny and kind of dilapidated. They really need to redo that stuff, redo that studio. But nevertheless, yes, I got to see her a little bit and hang out with her. She's very, very nice. But I just think those shows are not, Dose and Cat, you were mistaken for Canadian due to my Wisconsin accent. Go figure. It's the way I say out and about. Really? Because I feel like in Wisconsin, you guys just round your O's, but not the way the Canadians do it. I feel like Wisconsin is the Midwestern sort of accent is a little bit different than Canada. Kristen Welker needs to go. She's too weak. Who do you think is good? I mean, do you think Stephanopoulos is good? I think he's okay. He's pretty good. But I agree. Meet the Press is not the same since we lost Tim Russert. Totally agree. Russert was so, so good. And nobody presses anybody the way Russert used to press them. And not just Russert. If you remember, like we had David Brinkley on ABC back in the day. That was very good with Sam Donaldson and George Will, and not so much anymore. But I just generally think the mainstream media has completely, when I come out of mainstream media, I've spent over 20 years at all these different networks. And I got to tell you, it's not what it used to be. They know it's not what it used to be. The people who work there are constantly concerned about their jobs. They're constantly concerned about who's up and who's down. There's so much internal politics. They're almost afraid to rock the boat for fear of potentially losing their jobs. So it's just, and you're right, Eileen, the anchors are constrained by corporate, but more importantly, I think they're constrained by their own fear of corporate, by their own fear of being taken over. Like think about CNN. They're about to be potentially bought out by the Ellisons, which means that Barry Weiss, who is conservative, will be put in charge of the network, which means that if you press a Trump administration official too much now, you might get on her radar for later. Jill Puckett, will you be making a big Thanksgiving meal? So I am actually, here's my dilemma. We go to my husband's brother's house for Thanksgiving every year. And then I feel bad because my parents obviously don't get to spend Thanksgiving with me. So what we're doing is we're having my aunt and my parents over to my house on Wednesday, and I'm making a humongous Thanksgiving meal on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, Thanksgiving, we're actually going to my in-laws' house. My brother has many, many, many brothers. And so all of them get together, most of them, I should say, get together on Thanksgiving with their wives and their kids. It's actually a huge family thing. It's great. He's got amazing brothers. I love his family. But we're doing both. We're doing my family on Wednesday, and we're doing my husband's family on Thursday. So if anybody has any good Thanksgiving recipes, let me know. I've got the turkey down. I've got the mashed potatoes down. I'm going to be making chocolate pecan pie, which is so good. I'm going to be making pumpkin pie, which I don't like, but my husband likes. And I have to make the gravy, which I'm not very good at, and the stuffing, which I don't really like. And then my dad calls me and he goes, I made the best borscht you'll ever have in your life. I'm going to bring it for Thanksgiving. And I said, Dad, that's not really a Thanksgiving thing, borscht. He's like, you got to try this borscht. It's so good. So I think we're going to have a little Russian Thanksgiving, little borscht on the side. What is Cynthia Rice? What is PA Dutch? I'm going to be in Pennsylvania doing this. What is PA Dutch filling? And please send it. Send me the recipe. You got to send me the recipe. That sounds really, really good. The worst thing that happened was the emergence of Rupert Murdoch. True. Paramount and Universal want to buy Warner. If Paramount gets it, then they will own Comedy Central, HBO, DC. Scary. True. That is the Ellisons. And they're going to own CBS too. Not just Comedy Central. They already own Comedy Central. but they're going to own HBO, all of that. Borscht is a good color. Borscht is really good. I like hot borscht. I don't like cold borscht, but it's not really Thanksgiving-y. But I want to know what PA Dutch filling is. That sounds really good. Warm apple pie with a scoop of vanilla ice cream, a cinnamon ice cream. Yes, I agree, Eileen. I'm just, apple pie is such a, you have to make the lattice. It's too much work. So apple pie is not great. Red cabbage or kraut always on our Thanksgiving table. I love red cabbage. It's really, really good. Heidi, you love borscht. Me too. Let's see what else. Love Waj, Ali, and Danielle Moody. Waj is great. I don't know Danielle, but Waj is fantastic. He is so, so good. I agree. I make the best pumpkin cheesecake. If people want to send me recipes, please do, because I'll make them. I'm a huge, Michelle and I actually are thinking about maybe doing a cooking and conversation show at some point where we just make a meal and talk and everybody can make it with us together. And maybe we just do something where we put a recipe in the chat and set a time to do it and we all cook it together and see what happens. Unlike the Food Network, which I don't think gives you the recipe in advance, so you can't make plans for it. If people are up for that, let us know. Can I post my CNN and MS Now clips here on Mayday? I think we post some of them. Yeah, I have to remember to do that. It's just, I think I post them more on my Salty Politics YouTube, but I will post them on Mayday if people want to watch them. It's a little different, right? Because they're very short, and sometimes I get into it with a Republican. Less and less since I got banned from talking to Scott Jennings at CNN. There's nobody to get into it anymore, so I can't do that, but I will post them. That's true. I would suck at cooking, but I'll try. I used to suck at cooking too, and then I tried, and actually, if there's a recipe to follow, I'm pretty good. Gilles Jacques, I think that's how you pronounce it. I miss my family now. It's just me and my senior doggy. You have us too. That's why I think we want to do this on Thanksgiving, that you guys have maybe do a coffee and conversation more on Thanksgiving, or we just talk about stuff in the morning to get the morning going and not just be as serious as we are on the morning show here and just have a regular conversation. Maybe we'll do that. It could be made as pie too, but I suck at pie crust. I suck at pie crust too, but you could cheat. You could just get the pre-made pie crust and then put the actual pie in it. Let's see what else. We are going to the in-laws. Don't know that what we're having. It's scary. Are the in-laws not good cooks? Are people actually stressed? I want to know, are people like stressed going to Thanksgiving with their family? Because actually, I got to say, because I go to my in-laws, I'm not stressed at all because everybody's just very chill and whatever. A little stressed when my parents come over because, dynamics, but not on actual Thanksgiving. But if people are, I love it. My family's awesome. That's great. I love that. I love to hear that. But for those of you whose family is not awesome or is not around, or is, you just want to do something right before you leave for Thanksgiving, I think we'll be here. It sounds to me like people want us to be here on Thursday, so we will. What else? My peeps are good peeps. Johnny, that's great to hear. I'm looking forward to seeing my 6-year-old granddaughter, Ravi. That's wonderful. Where is she? Are you guys are people traveling far for Thanksgiving this year, or are you sticking around here? Bathtub Mary, stress this year. We've had some hard things the last 3 years. Yeah, we have to be honest. My mom's health took a turn in the last month or so. That's been really difficult. So it's been hard for me, and I know it's been hard for people in the chat as well with their families. So I'm sorry, and please understand. I know what you're going through if you're going through some stressful times with your family's health or anybody else. Is Ben Ferguson the bizarro Scott Jennings? No, Ben Ferguson is a nicer Scott Jennings. I mean, they're both. Ben Ferguson actually, I think, believes what he says. Scott Jennings doesn't. Scott Jennings is just situational. If Biden had won, Scott Jennings would be sucking up to me big time. But since Biden lost, he's a complete asshole. I feel kind of envious about Americans celebrating Thanksgiving, that we do not get to do that. But at the same time, that's able to arrange right before Christmas, Kevin. That's why my cousin from France is here. He's never celebrated Thanksgiving. He wanted to see what it was like. So now we have to really do it up and show him what it's like. It is a lot before Christmas, but I love Thanksgiving. It's my favorite holiday because it's non-denominational. You're not celebrating the birth of anybody who some people may believe in, some people not. You're not celebrating, if I'm Jewish, I am Jewish. Passover is a big deal, but like that's just for people who are Jewish. Christmas is obviously a big deal for people who are Christian, and all these different religions have these, Diwali and all these different religions have all these different holidays. But Thanksgiving is great because everybody gets to celebrate it. And it's just about, for me, it really is about gratitude and giving thanks. And I have to say, we'll talk about this more on Thursday. I am so grateful to this community. Like, you have no idea how grateful we are for all the people who come here every day, for all the people who join us on Saturday mornings, for just building this wonderful community. And we're building it out more and more and more every day. If you go to our YouTube page, you will see that the reruns of the show, because a lot of people can't join us live, are huge. So this community is wonderful in the chat, but also people who can't join in the chat and watch us later. And it's getting bigger and bigger every day. And we haven't even done a real launch. We're going to do a hard launch early next year. This has just been our soft launch all this time. And already people are watching. And to all the people who read my stuff on Substack, I wish YouTube had that kind of platform so that I could just bring everything over here. But for all my people who read me on Substack, like, there's so many of you. And I started about a year and a half ago thinking I'm just going to write, not even a year and a half ago, a year and change. I'm just going to write and see if anybody bothers to read it. And now there are like hundreds of thousands of people who are reading it. And so many of you who are subscribing to read all of it. And I'm just so touched. And I know Michelle is as well. And I know for people who say, do you ever take a day off or do you ever take time off? No, we're working crazy hours. I'm literally up till 2 a.m. every morning. And then obviously get up to do the show every day. But it's okay. It's worth it. It's so worth it because we're building something really incredible with all of you. And we're so, so grateful to you. John Donahue, thank you. Thank you for that. Let's see. You guys are great, but I'm native. It has a whole different meaning. I'm upside down. I know. I'm sure it does. But I don't really think about Thanksgiving as this whole stupid, pilgrims met the natives and that's kind of a silly story. And by the way, not true. To me, Thanksgiving is just about literally what it is, giving thanks, not for being delivered from a storm coming from England over to Plymouth, Massachusetts, but more about just giving thanks for everything that we all have. And has anybody ever been to Plymouth, Massachusetts? It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. They have a recreation of the ship. But that's whatever, just if you ever have the opportunity to go to Plymouth, really, really, really beautiful. That whole area right before you hit Cape Cod is like God's country. I love it. And I don't know if anybody here is from Massachusetts, and it's great. What else do we have? Masshole here, Jen. I am an honorary masshole because I went to college and graduate school in Boston, and then for years at a house in the Berkshires in Western Massachusetts, which is like my favorite place on earth. And I love the Berkshires. And so I feel like I'm an honorary masshole. And I always say that if I ever decided to leave New York and had my choice of where to live, I would spend half the year in Europe and half the year in the Berkshires because I love the Berkshires so much. I once owned a Plymouth. What a lemon. Yeah, I bet. The Plymouth Rock is underwhelming. I agree, Jen. I'm not talking about Plymouth Rock. I'm talking about Plymouth, the actual town. It's great. And Duxbury and all those areas right before you hit the Cape are wonderful. You've been Deer Drive into Cape Cod and Salem, had a great time, but Salem is on the North Shore of Massachusetts, and the Cape is the Cape. They're not that close to each other, but it's beautiful. Let's see. It is like Plymouth Pebble. It's true. Everything Rosie, I am sumo wrestling obsessed. What? So we are thinking potentially of going, and I actually want to hear this. If anybody's been, we're thinking of potentially going to Japan in late March, which I've never been to. And I want to hear from people if you've been to Japan, whether it's okay to get around. If you just, obviously you don't speak Japanese, can you get around on your own? Do you need to do like an organized tour thing? Want to know if anybody's been to Japan, and is it worth going to a sumo wrestling thing? Because I've never been. Let's see what else. What else do we have? Plymouth Rock was not. Maddow lives in Otis. Maddow, I don't. Does she live in Otis now? I thought Maddow lived a little bit closer to Northampton. But if she lives in Otis, she's very lucky. My house is not too far from Otis. My house was in Lenox. And I don't blame Maddow for living in Otis. I would live in Otis too if I could, or anywhere in that part of the world. It's wonderful. I think she does her show from there. I'm not even sure she shows up at 30 Rock anymore. Okay, it is 9:00. Jen Pollock, I'm in Western Massachusetts, currently in Palmer. I was a little west of you in Lenox, which was great. I used to go to Tanglewood for rehearsals every Saturday. My son was a teeny tiny baby at the time. I would take him. He was not a teeny tiny baby. He was a toddler. And I would put him on the lawn while they were rehearsing, and he got to hear beautiful classical music. He would toddle around the lawn, and we would kind of kick a ball to each other. It was really wonderful. I have such wonderful memories. John Donahue, Lenox is nice. The Berkshires are nice. The Berkshires are the best, And it's painful for me to go there now, and I don't, because I so miss it. It's like I can't even bring myself to go there anymore, because it just brings back, like, why do I not live here anymore? Okay. Anyway, we could do a whole separate show on my love for Western Massachusetts, but we are not going to, because people have stuff to do. I think some people are off to see Jen Taub. I think some people are off to listen to Stephanie Miller. I think some people are off to work. Kevin, thank you. It's not easy to come on and speak for an hour all by myself. I'm not by myself. I have you guys, so it's all good. Love Lenox, live in Amherst. Can't afford that anymore. Grew up in Longmeadow. Yeah, Amherst is beautiful as well. All right, the Norman Rockwell Museum, yes, in Stockbridge, beautiful. Norman Rockwell, actually, you know, that very famous painting that Norman Rockwell did of the police officer sitting at the counter with the little boy, and they're kind of looking at each other. That place is still there. That little coffee shop is still there. It is in Lee, Massachusetts. And it's great. And the food is very good. If you're ever there, go to the little coffee shop in Lee, Massachusetts, and you can sit at the diner where that painting took place. Okay, everybody. Hopefully Michelle will feel better and we'll be back tomorrow. Actually, I'm not sure if I'm going to be here tomorrow, because I think I have a meeting at my son's school, but I'm not sure. Any case, somebody will be here tomorrow, either Michelle or I or both of us. We love you guys. Thank you for joining. Thank you for letting me rant about Russia for a good 45 minutes. And have a wonderful day. I'm going to end the stream. I don't know how to end it with the music the way Michelle does, so I'm just going to say goodbye and see you all later. Bye, everybody.